Okay, stream should be transferred over. Welcome everyone. The agenda is there. And we will go ahead and get started. We're gonna start with client updates. Then we're gonna talk about this mid-year upgrade. Let's see, I have a document somewhere. Here's a document. There's some stuff at the top three things. I think we are generally a go. Then there's a couple of fork choice stuff issues that specs are being updated to resolve these issues right now. These issues must be resolved. They're a little bit less for debate, but the second of the issue, I would like some engineering input on complexity of dealing with that fix in the context of production proto-array implementations. Beyond that, there are a couple of nice to haves. We've been playing around with specs, haven't found, we're looking for the right kind of compromise to see if we can get this stuff cleanly out, and that we'd like to make a decision on those next two by 2 weeks from now. But in the meantime, would begin to release test vectors and other things for the features that we had decided on. Anyway, let's do client updates, and then we can talk about anything in there that we'd like to, and then go from there. We do have a research workshop that Xiaowei has been organizing. Be a mix of some presentations on educational stuff on the merge and sharding, and hopefully a lot of like dynamic discussion and engagement. This will likely be streamed. It will certainly be put on YouTube for public consumption at some point. Cool. So let's go ahead and do client updates, and we can start with Nimbus today. Is someone from Nimbus ready to do an update? If not, I can go to somebody else.
Yeah, just wait a second. Mommy's having connection issues. He was kept it today, so let's see if he comes online.
Let's do Prism, and we'll get back to Nimbus.
Hey guys, yeah, our update for for the last few while is we've been working on aligning to EIP 3076, the slashing interchange format. We're complying with the Lighthouse spec tests. We're working on the Eth2 APIs implementation, just making progress, implementing the different endpoints, and have improving proposer efficiency and packing attestation and order of magnitude improvement. And working on an internal design doc for how we're working towards the first network upgrade, scoping out the necessary work and planning. We are revamping Slasher from the ground up and improved and totally revamped local slashing protection. Aside from that, just working on improvement, stability, and just trying to harden the phase 0 code base.
Curious on the slashing protections, what's the kind of fundamentally different in the approach there?
Yeah, we just used a smarter database schema. Previously, we had a fairly naive approach that ended up keeping the min and max spans, a lot of them in memory, and it ended up being just really inefficient, especially when you had like thousands of validators on a single instance. Like even when you had 1,000 validators per beacon node, it would become unreasonable. So we just leveraged the database, had a smarter schema, indexing, and yeah, it led us down a better path.
Okay, cool. Thank you. And Bobby, did you get your mic sorted? Here, we'll do Nimbus last, and maybe it'll be sorted by then. Let's do Lighthouse.
Hey everyone. So recently we've released a new version, 1.1.0, which had a lot more sophisticated validator monitoring features, which has kind of been well received. On top of that, we've been looking at some more detailed analysis of attestation performance across all of our nodes. And we found that like late propagation of blocks is kind of causing some of our attestation performance to degrade. So we've been optimizing the gossip propagation for block propagation, and we have them fairly flat at about 3 to 15 milliseconds, which is a significant improvement. So hopefully that should land in our next release, and we'll see improvements to the attestation performance. The other thing that's been degrading them is we've been receiving blocks early to the slot, so we're adding some caches to keep those blocks kind of in memory and then process them when they come. We've also kind of been started looking into the Eth1 and Eth2 merge API, so hopefully we should start getting an implementation for that in Lighthouse in the near future. So over the next few weeks, we probably should be focusing on getting our attestation performance to be perfect or as close to perfect as we can get. Cheers.
Cool. Thank you, Age. Let's start.
Seems like Cayman is not here, so I wasn't expecting, but I'll do some update. So basically we have a new sync.
Hey, you sound a little bit far from the mic. Is there anything you can do to adjust that?
Yeah, maybe. How about now?
Great, thank you.
Yeah, so we basically have a new sync, and it's supposed to be a lot faster, and it does a lot of things in parallel, and we are testing it out, and we are trying to keep to our 2-week release cycle. So hopefully we'll have a stable client. We are also running a validator on a testnet, and it's having some hiccups here and there, but generally seems fine. And we also started doing a lot of like light client prototyping. We just implemented the spec, and we are doing some changes to the database to allow us to keep like forks from different blocks from different forks. Yeah, that's it.
Gotcha. Thank you, Marin. And Teku?
Yeah, hey. So the next release was made. It's 21.1.1. Here we added support for block attestation and voluntary exit event streams for the standard API. Currently, the UPnP PR is almost ready, and we are currently working on refactoring to be able to support the upcoming and future upgrades, forks. This is probably the most challenging part now. Also, we are working on enabling gossip scoring, continuing improvement of sync process, and we are also updating to the latest BLST library. So that's it from us.
Got it. Thank you. And Nimbus, is anybody ready? I saw you unmute, Mommy, but I don't think we can hear you. Yeah, no audio.
Well, perhaps I can give a partial update. I mean,
Yeah,
I
sounds
have bring some updates from the top of my head. Probably I'll miss something. The most important thing we did this week is that we've integrated batch verification of BOS signatures, and this brings some significant performance advantages. We will be also introducing more multi-threading in this area. We'll be trying to gather a large number of attestations before verifying them, and then using both the algorithmic batch verification and multi-threading to make some gains. We've also solved an important issue which resulted in very long processings of blocks with deposits, which rendered the client a bit unresponsive for short periods of time, which sometimes resulted in missed attestations. And now we also solved an issue with our Eth2.0 monitoring, which manifests when the Web3 provider replies with incomplete number of reported deposits, which sometimes resulted in our client getting into an invalid state that required a restart to be fixed. And we are also experimenting we did quite a lot of work on peer management in libp2p, but this is a bit ongoing.
Got it. Thank you. Okay, moving on. So I expect this conversation probably to be ongoing over many weeks, but that document was shared based on your team's review. Is there anything that people would like to discuss today? What we can do, so we can do a more asynchronous engagement, is move most of the structure of that document into more of like a checklist format onto the spec repo for asynchronous discussion.
I guess while we're here, do people have either more general or more specific thoughts of any kind on the idea of doing and the proposal of doing this kind of hard fork at kind of roughly the time that we've been suggesting?
Yeah, I mean, broadly timeline being this initial upgrade mid-year, summer, focusing, and then production test nets of one of the major upgrades charting or merge by end of year. I guess those are the two big things we expect
I
to see.
think maybe the better question is like, if we want to do this hard fork, when do we start upgrading the testnet? Like, what would the timeline? What kind of, how much time do we need to test this before we're comfortable releasing it on mainnet?
Yeah, good question. I would presume a minimum of 1 month lead time on like transitioning our major testnet, but to see testnets, local testnets, and other testing, certainly a month prior to that.
Right. Like, I think part of the reason, the reason why we've been just asking and pushing for people's opinions on this is because we really want to get to hard agreement on the contents of the hard fork ASAP. Like, if we can get total consensus either on all but one of the features or even all of them within, and again, 2 weeks, that would be amazing. And like 1 month lead time between the main testnet and the main net definitely seems kind of roughly standard for, especially given that things on ETH1 usually have like either roughly that amount of time or slightly less. But then like smaller test nets should probably just start happening like as soon as it gets developed by each client.
When do we need to come to consensus on the bonus section? Would you say that 2 weeks is a fine time frame?
Good question. So part of the reason why I called it the bonus section in that document is because like I know that those items are kind of a bit deeper than the other items, and so it might take longer. So if like in 2 weeks we get a consensus on everything except for the bonus section, then that's fine. Especially since like development, like if that happens, then what that means is that client teams should just start building, and even testing everything outside the bonus section, and then you can add in the bonus section and basically do it last. So it is okay if coming to a final decision on the bonus section takes a bit longer than the other parts.
I would say in terms of having a concrete direction for those items, I'd like to have in 2 weeks' time, either we think this is a reasonable path on specs and would like input and review, or we don't really have a reasonable path on specs and want to drop them. So like at least in 2 weeks' time, even if we're not making a decision, we're in a place where we can like at least evaluate.
Yeah, I mean, evaluate and like ideally if we can then choose a path, like either don't do it, or do option one, or for each individual item, either don't do it or do it as written, or do it some other way. But like basically the more we can decide on, the better. But there's obviously the possibility that like there would be some small detail that we would just decide should be changed after it gets implemented a couple of times, and we just learn that it makes more sense that way, and that's unavoidable anyway. One more just kind of quick warning on the bonus section, by the way, for those who have been following that document closely. I did come up with a new version of the empty epoch processing improvements that got literally turned into a PR over the last 2 days. So this it takes a different approach. It basically does not try to do any of the quotient or based stuff. It just basically makes amortizes penalties and only processes them once every 64 epochs instead of every epoch, and it does have its own trade-offs. So just like, but when you're reading through things, watch out for that. Aside from the bonus, I don't think any of the other sections have really been significantly touched for quite a few weeks now.
Okay. Anything else we want to discuss here today?
And just on the hard fork 1 documents topic, and we are expecting to have people to we are expecting to come as close as we can to making decisions next time around. So hope we can all be prepared for the discussion in 2 weeks, and like before 2 weeks as well. Obviously, the asynchronous channels exist. I'm happy to answer any questions on those or on any of those channels.
Great. Okay, moving on. Research updates. I believe it is on February 2nd. Yes, on Tuesday. We are having a research workshop, as I mentioned. Shaway has been organizing that, and I believe should have gotten in touch with the teams here and many other teams. That will be available on the internet for public consumption. I don't think we have much to discuss here. Shaway, do you have anything that you want to add here?
Yeah, just I think I will send the another announcement to the attendees by this week, and we will share the YouTube link later, maybe this week or on Monday, I think.
Yep. Okay. Knowing that we have workshop coming up on Tuesday, is there anything else people want to share today about research updates?
So Dankrad has been doing, I don't know if he's around, but he's been doing the primary work on this. I've been helping a bit implementation of Verkle trees, though that's probably realistically more relevant for ETH1 developers than ETH2 developers. I can't think of anything on the ETH2 side for myself.
If Verkle trees are imminently viable, would you, Donkard, suggest migration to Verkle trees instead of the binary Merkle tree?
Right, yeah, basically like for storing state, it's would be much more efficient, at least from the witness size point of view, to use Verkle trees, because you basically have much fewer levels. Each level needs slightly more effort to prove, but if you got time to use fewer levels, it's fine. Yeah, I mean, as Vitalik said, it's mostly relevant for ETH1 statelessness at the moment, but the cattle commitments we're using are obviously relevant for ETH2. And I'll be giving an introduction on the workshop on Tuesday. And just for everyone, like if you can, or if you need refreshing on stuff like finite fields and basic elliptic curve stuff, like basically pairings and that kind of stuff, then it would be good if you just quickly read up on it. I'm gonna start from the basics, but I will probably spend very little time on that because there just isn't that much time.
Yeah, do you have any particular resources you'd want to share if people wanted to get caught up on the basics?
Yeah, sure, I can do that.
Cool. Thank you.
There is Dankrad's own blog post on Kate commitments, which I think is linked to in my most recent blog post a couple of times. If you just like go to vitalik.ca, click the top link, and then scroll down way to the bottom of that, you'll find that that's one of the things.
Got it.
About Kate commitments, so several people have shown interest in implementing this now, and maybe it's a good idea to start some kind of group or like share our findings as we implement this. I know Mami from Nimbus is working on their implementation, and then I have my own. Dankrad can probably help or is interested, and then I know of one other outsider who's looking into implementing this. And then anyone else here in the call or maybe outside of the call, if you're interested, please reach out to me on Discord.
Great. Okay. Other research updates?
Yeah, quick update from the merge side. We have started to work on the specs. There is like an initial draft. And after some rounds of review, it will turn into the pull request against the Eth2 specs repo.
Great. Thank you. Other research
just
updates?
a quick update. Yeah, from BSC, we have been integrating the last updates in Rumor on the crawler, and we managed to solve the problem with ports that we were having previously. So I think now we get a more accurate vision of the network. I just posted a figure on the Discord, and yeah, so we are moving forward on that aspect. That's it.
Cool. Thanks, Leo. Other updates? Okay, great. And networking items. Does anybody have any comments, questions, thoughts, issues? I'm looking at that blocks by range request that we still need to resolve, and I'll try to resolve that today. Is there anything else people want to talk about? Okay. Where are we? General spec discussion.
I could mention one thing. So we were playing around with some optimizations in the spec, and there are these functions that that are executed for the block, right? Process block and everything under it. So we noticed in the spec tests that if you run the test as the spec function is written, it works, but then the given pre-states for the tests are actually invalid. If you work with the preconditions that are established in the order of operations in process block. So for example, the proposer index, it's always going to be in the header, which means that instead of calling, get beacon proposer index, which is kind of slow, even if you cache it, then you could potentially just use the value in the state, and that would be nice and fast. So I'm just kind of curious if there's any appetite for fixing this stuff for phase 0, or do we just leave it as is?
I mean, if you want to point me to a few of them, I can see if they are like the discrete ones that you point out. I can see if they're easy to fix. And would be happy to.
That's the first one I ran across.
You're talking about like a disparity between get block proposer from state versus getting the index from the header.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
It's as if the header wasn't updated, as if,
Right.
I think the function is called process block header or something like this. Hadn't been run during the test generation.
I see.
Because
because it's actually in the header that's sitting in the state rather than in the block header.
Yeah, exactly. So like the test is kind of valid, but it gives a state that could never, it could never happen in reality, right? It's a little bit a similar issue to fuzzing, like the state transit, like the logic can go into the state can have certain values that will never happen, and due to other logic in the state transition function, like what do we do about those? Like, we're tolerant against them right now, but
is this because you want to have stricter validations on data, or is this because there are certain optimization paths that you can't take because of the way testing might have forced you to use certain sources of data and things?
Well, it's the latter really, but it's also a statement on like how valid is a test that doesn't have a valid incoming state. Like you could ask yourself that question, perhaps.
Right. I guess if we're testing a function,
we're testing a function.
Yeah, you can make an argument that it doesn't matter, but I see the value there. Look, I mean, if you want to, as you find these, write them down. I'm happy to see if I can fix the test easily. There's a lot of different tests and types of tests in the way that they're kind of generated, and some of them might be easier to fix than others.
Yeah, I mean, because even the optimization is kind of minor-ish. It's a dumb little lookup, you can say, but a lookup is a lookup when you're processing lots of blocks. It kind of adds up.
So again, I'm happy to clean them up, but I don't have like the I don't have a single fix for the entire test suite to just make it all coherent. So I'd have to just know which ones to look at.
I'll open up the first one that I found because I can't really progress without it being, or whatever. We'll see how it goes.
Okay, anything else today? Spec or otherwise? Great. We will have a long, fun hangout on Tuesday. So I'll talk to you all then, and probably talk to you on the internet otherwise. Take care. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye. Everyone. Bye.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Everyone.
Bye-bye.